Glad everybody's here. This is exciting. Welcome to the personal budgeting with CIC and the lending team. A little bit about myself. My name is Patty Gonzalez. I'm the Director of Housing at CIC, and I have been doing financial education probably for 22 years or so. So this is kind of my expertise, and I enjoy teaching it because I am also the worst example. So I have to remind myself to not have to go to Starbucks every day. So things like that is kind of what we're going to be covering today. So a little bit about CIC. We are a financial empowerment nonprofit serving the Southern Arizona region. We give the members of our community who are shut out or left behind in our economy access to the knowledge and financing they need to pursue new opportunities. So that's why we're trying to put these educational classes on, so we can help people achieve the goals that they're trying to make, or create a small business, purchase a home, whatever it is they might be doing in their lives. Okay. So why budget? So let's just get straight into this. Important reason to budget is it puts you in charge of your finances. It helps you decide what you can and cannot afford. It keeps track of how you spend your money, helps you create a savings plan, and helps you stay out of financial problems. Okay, so we try to give this example. This is a pretty good example. We know we're all making money, but the question of the day is always, where did our money go? Or it's payday on Friday, so we just got to hold up until we get there a few more days. So we try to give this example because a lot of us will have a car payment, and or shelter is considered your rent or your mortgage payment. Most of us do need a roof over our head, and we have automobiles to get to work. And here you'll see with the economy now, all the prices have gone up in everything, whether it's been rent, your mortgage, prices of homes, and car payments. So what we try to show here in this example is you'll see just for 1 month, if we have a car payment of $700, and then we have our house of $1,500, or nowadays rents are as high as $2,000 when you're renting a home, you'll see just after 5 years, that $700 car payment, after 5 years, you've already invested $42,000. And then on a home, if you're paying rent of $1,500, just in 5 years, you've invested $90,000. So we need to find ways to pay these types of expenses, because these are our main expenses, but you'll also see here that it ends up being a lot of money over the years. So when you're looking at pursuing homeownership, this is something we talk about when you're renting. That $90,000 in rent that you just did in 5 years is something that could be going towards your mortgage payment. Okay. So track your income and spending. Okay, that's if we're not looking at it or writing it down, we're not seeing where the money is going. So something on here we talk about, you can either, there's two options. You can log it manually. And so now we're going to be logging our income and expenses. And we were talking a little bit about this earlier when we were talking about auto pay. That's going to fall under your option 2. So if you're talking about option 1, doing manually, for 1 month, you want to write down everything you've made, so your income, and then what you're spending. So this includes all cash purchases, debits, credit cards, and such. Now, another thing we were talking about when you have auto pay to pay your debts, I personally use a calendar because I'm more of a paper person, so that it needs to remind me specifically, here I'm getting paid on this date, so my car needs to be paid with this paycheck, and the rent needs to be paid with the other paycheck, because a lot of us do not make enough money to be able to pay car and house or shelter or rent, whatever it might be, with one paycheck. So that's why when we're talking about manually, not only are we going to be talking about the budget form that lists all the income and your debts, but you now got to be looking at the calendar to look at when you're actually getting paid. Now, your electronic records, you want to download your transactions from your bank account, your credit cards, and all of that. Where that becomes helpful is because then you know where you're spending, for instance, not just with our utilities, but if we're looking at our bank statements and we're seeing Starbucks listed daily, Things like that. It's going to help us determine, okay, maybe we should consider cutting back. I'm never going to tell you to not do it, but it's cutting back that's going to become helpful. And if you made any cash purchases, add them to the electronic record. Okay, so this example, we sent out this budget form, that's an actual Excel sheet. You can make that your own, and then that's when you're going to start this electronic records.
Patty, would you mind minimizing the participants? That way we can see the full slide.
Can I do that?
You gotta do it from the keypad.
Yeah. If you hover over it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Little. Thank you.
Make us go away.
Yeah.
Caroline, I don't want to see you.
Twice.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So we're going to be talking about categorizing the transactions. Okay, so here's an example of the budget form that we actually sent you guys also via email. And this is something that later on we're going to talk about is maybe we follow this kind of presentation up with a more personable and one-on-one type, education and looking at budgeting to see if that's something we want to consider doing to kind of help you achieve a goal, to see what it is we're trying to do or accomplish or why we are really budgeting. So in this example, you'll see here, you want to group your transactions using categories on the budget form to see how much you spend in each category. And then you add the totals on this budget form. So essentially what we'll be covering later, we won't spend too much time on it, is this particular form is you want to write down all sources of income. And you want to remember that it's your net income because that's the money you actually take home to spend. And then we'll go through later all the categories that are listed on the budget form. And the categories that are listed first are going to be one of your more important categories or your required, which is usually your shelter, your food, and your vehicles, okay? And the utilities, of course. And then the rest of the list really is when you start looking at your needs and wants. Okay, so you want to review your spending history. Okay, so we're going to start with reviewing your budget. So this shows how much you made and spent over the course of a month. Now, as I mentioned, you're going to have your regular expenses that most of us do, is our utilities, shelter, and cars. And then you'll want to start looking at, are you surprised with your spending habits? Okay, is it what you expected? And this is is this how you want to be spending money? What tends to happen is you want to break even. You want to be able to write down, this is the money that came in and this is the money that's going out. You don't ever want to spend more than what you make, but we tend to spend more than what we make, which is why we have loans, which is why we got to take out car loans, which is why we have credit cards and such. So you want to do that. You want to start comparing how much you are making versus what you are spending. That's truly what it comes down to. And if you do this budget worksheet and at the end you have a ton of money left over, so you're like, oh, I'm not really spending that amount of money, that much money versus what I make. If you have a huge difference left, then you should have a huge bank account. I mean, there should be a ton of money in savings. So what tends to happen is we miss a lot of things we didn't write down, especially the day-to-day spending. What we tend to see is every day at some point, all of us will stop at some store, okay? Whether it be the Circle K, to be the Starbucks, will be the coffee, the bagels. We're gonna pick up lunch, whatever it might be. So especially like in my household, somebody makes some stop every day. So that is gonna be where your big spender is, because this particular sheet is monthly. And that's just one stop we do in that one day. So you just have to be thinking about those kind of expenses we didn't really pay attention to, especially right now around the holidays. It's like, okay, I gotta go pick this up for Thanksgiving, or I said I was gonna take this, or we have a potluck, whatever it might be. It's those last minute things we didn't prepare for, or we weren't ready for it, and we just made a quick stop. Okay, so again, I talked about here, if you're spending more than what you're making, that's when you're gonna see the lack of savings account. You got car loans, credit cards, and such. Okay, so you want to identify areas for improvement. first thing is you've kept track of how you're spending your money. That's gonna be the number one. That's what we've learned over the years is if we're not writing it down, we're truly not seeing it. Or you're gonna find that you start writing it down and you stop following it because you don't like what you see. Okay, you know, that's what most of us are. Just like right now, I would emphasize it's the holidays, we're gonna tend to overspend. But then we'll start with, okay, I'll start budgeting in the new year. Okay, the budgeting is a lifestyle that a lot of us don't want to do, even just like dieting. Okay, you know, it's like it's gonna in the new year, our New Year's resolution is going to be our savings plan and or diet, or we're gonna start exercising, whatever it is we're gonna do. So it is something we put off, just like any other part of our lives, and everybody does it. Okay, there's not one particular person that is just like, oh, I'm a horrible person because I have bad credit and I have to file bankruptcy. That's not the case. It's just, everything can be fixed. Okay, it's just gonna be a matter of taking the time to write it down and come up with goals and a plan. Really, it's a plan. So it says here, you want to review your expenses, your expense category. And on this particular budget, there's two columns. The very last column is where the needs and wants comes into play. And then you want to look at, could you do without it and add that amount to savings instead? Or it might be the holidays. So maybe I didn't spend as much, so I was able to save more money to purchase gifts or whatever it is I'm going to do for the holidays. Or my car tags are coming up, or the car needs new tires. You know, there's going to be something coming your way. So then maybe we got to go back to this budget sheet and be looking, okay, let's look again at our needs and wants. Okay. And then maybe you cannot do without a category altogether. So we're never going to tell you don't do it or you can't do that anymore, because then we're going to do it more. Okay. So it's going to be, can you spend less in that category? Which is why that budget form is very detailed. We all live different lifestyles. So it's going to be different for everyone, but we try to list multiple debts so that you can relate in a way. And then think of like, okay, well, I don't spend money there, but I spend a ton of money there. Okay, so things like that is even when we're talking about eating healthy, you know, it tends to be even more money to eat healthy and buy fresh and organic. And yes, it's better for you, but it is also more expensive. So those kind of lifestyle changes are, you know, affect everybody's budget differently. Children, pets, all of that. So that's why we talk about identifying areas for improvement. Again, everybody is going to have a different lifestyle. So creating a budget. Okay, a budget is a plan for how we are going to spend our money. It really comes down to it because we're going to spend our money. I mean, it's a given. Okay, so it's going to be how are we going to do it? And so it's review your budget form.
I got it.
Oh, okay.
I got it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Review your budget form and create a guide for how you want to spend your money. Okay, because we're going to spend it. So how are we going to spend it? And then you can use the numbers from your actual spending to inform your goals. So it's like, okay, let's look at, okay, I am spending the money. Maybe we're going to take a shift and not spend as much here because I know I got to spend it here. The money's going to go regardless. Okay. So we're just trying to take control of that. So in our budget, our outgoing expenses should be less than our incoming. Okay. That's the goal. Does that ever get met? Very rarely, because it's going to be that Thursday or today, you know, tomorrow's going to be Friday and it might be payday. So it's, you know, we're drinking water for, you know, 24 hours or whatever, you know, it's like, we find a way. I already use that, you know, it's just like with my kids now, it's like payday's not till next week. I'm using I just got paid last week and I don't have money, so don't ask. Okay, so that there's that, you know, that outcoming versus the incoming. And make sure to include an amount to savings, because you still got to come with the goal of why are we doing it. Okay, so the whys. The why could be saving allows us to store money for future use. It could be for down payment, or if you're looking to purchase a home. It could pay off debt, because that's going to help us be able, if we're looking to borrow money, paying off current debt is gonna allow us to maybe get approved for, if we're looking to purchase a home or a small business loan, whatever it is we're trying to apply for. For vacations, okay, vacations are nice, but a lot of us can't really do them just because the cost of flights and hotels and such. So maybe that is your goal. Maybe that is why we want to save, and we wouldn't have to charge our flights, use our credit cards. And then emergencies. Okay, we all have different emergencies. It could be something, we had a blowout on the freeway, and now I have to buy a new tire. And tires are not cheap anymore. And if that emergency happened to put, a dent in your wheel well, or whatever it might be, it could just, many things come up. It could be ill, we got, fell sick, we can't go work, we don't have PTO, many things. We all have different emergencies. And then there's home repairs. Okay, if you're a homeowner and your AC goes out, we can't live in Tucson without air conditioning. Okay, so that is something that's going to get repaired immediately. And then education is a big one, whether it be you have young kids, education could be you have no kids and now you have kids, so you have daycare. You're trying to go back and get your degree, whatever it might be. And then retirement. Okay, retirement was something that I had pictured totally something different. It was like, okay, I'm going to be able to retire. Me and my husband are going to travel the world. And my kids never left. It was like, okay, so, these children of mine will, start their careers and be making money and help pay rent, and I can just go live my best life. But yeah, that didn't work out that way. So that 18 and out the door is not the case. Yeah, so they're still trying to decide what they're going to do with their life. So that means I'm still supporting them. So that whole retirement thing of, I can live off this little amount of Social Security and be okay is not the case right now. I'm working for 20 more years. So, it's that why save, we're all going to have different reasons. Okay? So you want to review your budget monthly. And the reason we talk about monthly, it's a job. It really is, this budget. And we say monthly is because things are changing. So for instance, our electric bill is going to start going down because it's not 115, but us that don't know how to behave in the winter, our gas bill goes up because we're taking longer hot showers, things, they just swap. It just seems like, okay, my electric bill's down, but something's going to come up. So you want to try keeping your monthly budget totals within the amounts you set. Okay, because then it's like, once we've determined this is what we're spending, this is what we're making, then it's like, okay, now that I looked at, I need a cut back here. We want to stay consistent. We can't just do it for a month. Okay. So there are many methods to track this by hand. Okay. Writing it down, the cash envelope method. Okay, maybe it is something you do is you put that money away. I was looking forward to that cash envelope method when I was going to start charging my kids rent. But that it's all, it's just like, you're expecting all these things, but that's going to change. Okay. So there's a lot of budgeting apps. You just don't want to pay for any of those. And then you want to try different methods and figure out what works best for you. CIC is going to be looking at offering one-on-one. Maybe you need someone to walk you through this and go through your bank statement and help you write these things and expenses. So that way you can again, we're not going to tell you to not be doing these things, but we're going to show you where you shouldn't be spending as much or where you could cut back. And then you want to review your spending regularly to make sure you are sticking to your budget. Okay, because then you'll lose track, or like right now we're losing track because of the holidays. A lot of us are doing a little more spending than normal. Or if we were planning a vacation, preparing for that vacation, whatever it is we're doing is we're going to, sidetrack a little bit, but it's just a matter of getting back. You want to make adjustments as needed. Just remember, if you add money to one category, it has to come out of another. Okay. Because the incoming money doesn't just keep growing. They're like, hey, no one's going to be just throwing money at you. Okay. So since you're spending it, you need to see where you're gonna take it from. So for instance, you add more money to eating out, but reduce TV subscriptions. Okay, so that's a good example. Like for instance, what we do at home is we don't do movie theaters. Okay, we spend a fortune at concerts, but we've never gone to movie theaters. Okay, and you know, the ticket, well, right now there's that movie that just came out.
Nights at Freddy's.
No.
Zootopia 2.
I don't know. It was like there's someone just even got a tattoo on it. Tattoos are expensive, but also, anyway, I just saw that there's that movie craze, and then they went and got a tattoo, and I thought, well, going to that movie is expensive. You know, your movie ticket, your popcorn, and such, and that's usually just for one person, and then we tend to go out to eat either before or after the movie. So that movie, you know, is $100 event. Okay.
Walking outside is $100.
Apple Pay is
Yeah, it's like now the minimum before it'd be like, okay, here's $20. Now it's like it's $100 minimum. Or it's like, it's cold outside, I gotta go buy gloves. It's like, no, you don't have to go buy gloves. But yeah, you know, it is a balancing, and this is actually important where it works with my kids is like, I can go to Starbucks, but you don't have Starbucks money. So, you know, things like that it's just like, but if you want to go to In-N-Out, then, you know, this is why you can't do these things. Or this is why we don't go to the movies, because we go out to eat. So it's like you either watch the movie or we go out to eat. You know, so things like that it is a balancing act, and writing it down on this budget is helpful with giving them examples. Now, this is also a good example when it comes to financing is what a lot of people, most of us worry about what's the monthly payment going to be, okay? So this is the importance of a good credit. And the reason I'm talking a little bit about credit is just so you start preparing. Budgeting is a job just in itself. But I like to put credit in there because it's something you want to start preparing for, because it is one of the next steps to whether you want to purchase a home, a car, get a small, you know, a business loan, anything you're looking at doing. And I like to touch on credit, where credit could be its own class at another time. So you want to give that in your feedback when the surveys go out. If there's classes you want to learn about, you know, credit is going to be one of them. And so we're talking about here, the importance of good credit is when you have someone with a low credit score, they're looking to purchase an $18,000 car loan, okay, at 21% interest. And 21% is actually a good deal on a used car, okay? You know, I've seen them as high as 28%. And so that $18,000 car loan at 21% for 5 years, it's $486 a month. I'm sorry, $486 a month, almost $487. So after 5 years, that car is almost $30,000. So they bought it for 18, but the interest that they're going to be paying, that car is going to be now about $30,000. Okay. Now here you'll see someone with a better credit score, that same $18,000 car loan at 3.99. Okay. So 3.99 is is a good rate. It tends to be on your newer cars, you know, so we're hoping you can at least get to 6 or 8% on a car loan right now. But when you have a $18,000 car loan at 3.9, that's $330 a month. So now that's a difference of $150. So that's what's important here when you're looking at, we'll say 4% versus 21%, same car, but it's the $150 a month. That is what's going to affect your budget. Okay. Now, when we're talking about how do we improve our budget, if you're able to refinance this car and lower the interest rate, you could save as much as $150. Or if you're buying a car with better credit, then you'll be getting the lower interest rate and you'll be going in with the lower monthly payment. Now that same car at $18,000 that you just purchased at 3.9, the payments end up being almost $20,000. So same 5 years, same car, it's a $10,000 difference. So that $18,000 car cost you $20,000 at 3.9. 18,000 at 21 ended up costing you 30,000. And that is 22, that's quite a bit of funds there, almost $10,000 more just because of the interest rate. And then is that $18,000 car after 5 years still going to be functioning? And you're still going to have that payment. Okay. So that's just kind of an important thing to start looking at when we're looking long distance. It's like, okay, no, we can't refinance the car. We got to, hold off for 5 years. But if we had started with good credit, it would have been $150 cheaper because of that interest rate. Tips for improving credit scores. Okay, and this is just real quick kind of things to start thinking about in the back of your head is pay your bills on time. Okay, because paying your bills on time affects your credit score the most. You'll see here there's this pie. 35% of your payment history is what hits your score the most. So if you make a late payment, that's going to drop your credit score quite a bit. So we're going to say you do have a credit card. Maybe that's your goal on your budget. We're going to say you have a high credit card balance and the minimum is $60. Now, if it gets to the point where I can't pay my credit cards anymore, you want to at least try to pay the minimum. Okay, you might not ever eliminate that credit card because the balance is so high, but as soon as you don't pay the minimum, your credit score is going to take the biggest hit because 35% of your score has to do with paying your bills on time. You want to pay down your bills or pay them off because 30% of your score has to do with the amounts owed. So what's your balance? So that's kind of the next step when we're budgeting. If we're creating a budget plan for you guys and the plan or the goal is to pay down credit card debt or any kind of debt, then that's how we tackle it. We're going to tackle it. At least you got to make your minimum. So we know some of your money's got to go that way. But then we're going to start looking at what is your limit, your credit card limit, and what's the balance. Because you want to try to at least owe less than 30% of what your limit is. Okay. And then you do not want to close old accounts or keep, just keep one or two open. The reason if you close accounts, that's actually going to hurt your credit score because 15% of your score has to do with length of credit. And by closing those cards, it even be like Sears or Mervyn's that doesn't exist anymore. You think, oh, they don't exist, I'm going to close it. But if you close it, then the credit bureau thinks you're afraid and you can't control yourself. Okay, so if 15% of your score has to do with how long you've been held onto these credit cards. And you want to just leave them there because they fall asleep or they die on their own. Okay, you don't want to make any activity on them. You also want to refrain from opening a lot of new credit. Okay, for instance, new credit cards, or every time they offer, like balance transfers, things like that. Because yes, 10% of your credit score has to do with the, new credit. But you don't want to open too much because then it's like, okay, they're going to go and max them all out. Okay. And then you want to have a mix of credit cards. So 10% is credit mix. And that means credit card, car, mortgage, store. Now there's the medical one, Care Credit, I think it's called. So you want to have a variety, but you don't want to have many of them. And then most importantly, pay your bills on time. Okay. I can't stress more than that. If you do budgeting just to try to get out of debt, that might be something you end up doing. You might not ever be able to create a savings plan, but at least you'll be able to eliminate some credit debt. Okay, your credit score is calculated using data from these 5 categories. So we talked about that, the history, how much the balance, new credit, how long have you had it, and the types of credit. Okay, so building financial confidence. Okay, so this is kind of why we're doing this class, is to be like, are we ready to start doing this? Is this what's our next step? So you want to create a budget. Okay, again, we're sent you guys a sample, and I know Loan is going to be offering one-on-ones, things like that, if that's something we want to start doing. And then you want to review your budget regularly and adjust it as needed. Okay, it is something else to do. It is considered, I see it as homework. But it is, if you're serious about achieving a goal, it's something you might want to get to. It's actually kind of boring too. In my case, I just don't like what I see. So then I put it away. It's like, I know I spend that much at Starbucks, but it's, it's just, I just stick to, that's why I work. Okay, Yeah. That's all my kids, that's all I tell them, it's like, that's why I work. And then you want to review it regularly and adjust as needed. You want to review your credit report, okay? You are entitled to look at your credit report for free once a year. Maybe that's something just to be like, okay, where the credit report is helpful is when you're looking at loan balances and limits, because maybe that's going to be your goal. Your goal might just be, I'm not going to eliminate the debt, but I'm at least going to try to get it low enough to where it's 30%. You don't owe more than 30% of your limit, because then your score will improve. You clean up your credit if needed. You want to set financial goals, okay, whether they be small or large. Like I mentioned, maybe we'll never get to a savings account. Maybe that's going to be the last thing. It'd be nice to have, what if you have children that are going to eventually, you need education, that kind of account, and you're able to set money aside to that. And then it's building small amounts of money each time you get paid to create the habit. Okay, so that's kind of what I have to do. It's like, put it away before I see it. So you can have your paychecks, your payroll department, instead of, send it to 2 different bank accounts, and one of the accounts you just don't touch. Okay, things like that. You got to get creative on if you need the discipline. I need the discipline. I need to be like, if I don't see it, I won't touch it. Okay. So any questions? We are at 9:45. I left a little bit of time at the end just to kind of give you an example of that worksheet, but there's our website and all the different services that we have to offer. And you have almost everyone in the room. So now's a good time if you have any other questions, but all these services that we offer, someone is here today to help you guys with that.
What about, is this just personal? I've actually never seen a budget sheet. Anytime I do it, that's personal and business on one, really just combining finances as a whole.
Yeah, we try not to do that.
Keep them separate.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's still interesting to see what's going in and what's coming out as a whole. So you're
Yeah.
like 2 different sheets and then combining the 2?
We are, or like, for instance, when we say leave money aside, so it's just like, okay, I have my personal worksheet, and it's like, okay, I have $500 left over that's going to go into the other bank account that's going to be business related. Okay, because what tends to happen is going to be, well, I ended up spending more money on supplies, so I'm going to take it from the kids' college tuition. Things like that, that it's just, now it's we really got to budget. We got to focus on our personal, get the personal one right, so that we don't have to tap back into the personal one to get our business one.
Right.
But if you do, remember to add that contribution onto your balance sheet for your business.
Yeah, because that might be your goal. That's like, so when we're talking about, because that's what kind of leads us to this next slide, is this budgeting is just in general as a whole, like just to figure out our life, because we have to, pay our rent and put gas in our car and eat. And we don't like to mix it with the small business piece, because one's going to suffer, one over the other's going to suffer. So like this next class that's coming up is more related, for entrepreneurs or business related, this dollar and cents is, we do keep it separately, because this budget worksheet is more for personal to say. Now you could create, because this is an Excel sheet, you could create it to where you make here's my next column.
But I have like QuickBooks already, like an accountant for my business, so I think this is fine. I just like to know as a whole, like, in my mind, not because I'm intermingling my finances, But yeah, so.
Yeah, you can make your own, even if you do another column and just call it, or this money that has to go to the business. Because that's, since it is part of your income, if you're gonna make your business income this, then maybe you could add that, make it its own expense.
Yeah.
Are you like still updating the balance, the profit and loss statement? Because that is
Well,
basically like a
everything's done
worksheet like
through-
that one. Oh, through
Everything's,
QuickBooks.
yeah, so I have a P&L every month and all of that.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that-
but just for the business, not
Right,
Yeah.
right.
personal, yeah.
Yeah, we have kept it, we've decided in this particular process we're doing right now is keep it separate because the personal one is so essential for all our life, essentially the rest of our life.
What do you recommend in an instance, like I'm in my first year in business and everything I'm making, I'm putting back in? Like almost to the dollar. What are your thoughts on like consolidation and lowering your interest rates and things like that? Because I started my business like completely debt free and now I have quite a bit of debt. So you have to spend money to make money.
Right.
So what advice do you have for that, for like higher interest, like credit cards and things like that?
And that's what the focus is usually gonna be. It's gonna be looking at, you wanna list all the debts. So that's where the credit report comes into play. Because the credit report will be like, this is everyone you owe money to. And then we look at, the next step is we look at what's the loan limit and what's your balance. So one goal might be get it to 30%. So if we're gonna say the loan's $1,000, you shouldn't owe more than $300 on it.
Yeah.
So one goal might be, let's get those bigger ones to 30%, or the goal might be the one that has a higher minimum. Let's get those ones down so we can bring the monthly minimum down too. Or the ones that have a higher interest rate, maybe bring it down. So you're gonna look at it 3 different ways on, is it just because I'm trying to improve my credit by reducing the amount of debt? Or is it because this one has such a high minimum, even if the interest rate's better on it, you're like, I can't afford this minimum. So, maybe that's the one I'm gonna tackle. So you're gonna have to look at it as what's gonna benefit you personally.
Right.
And that's something that, later on they can look at doing is let's look at all the debts. Because this, paying our cell phone is something entirely different versus, what you're looking at. So, yeah, that's gonna be your goal. It's gonna be, is it because I need to reduce my minimum monthly? Or is it, I wanna just tackle and eliminate because I have the money. Now I'm at a place where I have the money. So that's, you wanna kind of look at that.
That's a really good point, Patty. So I always think, higher interest rate, get it paid off first.
Yeah.
But it depends on what your end goal is.
Yeah, yeah, and then there's some that the minimum, might be 200, where you have that one that's $40 a month. It's like, okay, well, I'll just leave that $40. I might not pay it off for a long time, but it's not really affecting me right now. So I'm just gonna let it chill for a minute and focus on, whatever goal it is you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I've heard sometimes too that if you tackle, even if the one card has a high interest rate, but it's okay to tackle the ones that have a lower interest rate, even if it's a lower balance, so that you can start attacking the lower balance and then you get excited because you paid that one
It
off.
just depends on if your priority is building credit, saving money.
Correct. Or a limit, like for me, it's just like if I have 4 of them, I want to be at 3. So then maybe that's my goal, even if it's the one that I owe a little bit and it has a lower interest rate, but at least I paid it off and that's one less to worry about.
For sure.
So it depends. Everybody's going to be different, and that's where that one-on-one, comes into play, because it's, it's just like you don't want no one judging you on your debt. It's like I don't want no one judging me on my Starbucks, but it's just, it's just like I might need that outside looking in, which is I do really well with my kids, because it's just like, okay, I'm the problem here, so let me tell you what not to do.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yes. They will tell you that till the end, because I say that every month at least. So yeah, you'll want, everybody's gonna have a different reason why they're budgeting.
Right.
So, we put on here that that's something that they're looking at, doing, is you can get support on creating some kind of plan, and it is homework. It really is homework, and it holds you accountable. For instance, a goal might be tackle credit card debt, or it might be, okay, you have enough money left to set aside $50 a paycheck, we'll say. So that's going to be $100 a month, and you should be able to save $1,000, and that'll take you 10 months. So the goal might be, I'm going to see you in 10 months from now, and you should have $1,000 in the bank. Were you able to not touch $50 every paycheck?
Right.
So because then I have to be specific, because if I just say go save $1,000, I'll never hear from you again. Okay, but if I say save $50 a paycheck and I'm gonna see you in 10 months from now and bring your bank statement so I can see that $1,000 in that bank account. Okay, so then it gets very specific as to what are you trying to achieve? Okay, you know, what the goal is. Now, we talked earlier about this auto pay. A lot of people use auto pay, but I don't, because it's like, what if I don't have enough money in my account? When they go to, yeah. So it's like, I use a calendar. It's like, I use a calendar because I know these bills get paid with this paycheck and these other bills get paid with this other paycheck. So, you know, it's just a different stressor for people. You know, it's just like, I'm not gonna do that because I'll remember to pay it because it's on paper, where others like, I won't remember to pay it. So it's better if they take it out. But then it's like, I gotta remember to make sure there's enough money in there. Okay. So all those things, it's gonna be different for everyone. So those online, I don't know if anybody has any questions. We're almost at the end of time, but I was just gonna, they sent you the budget worksheet. And on that worksheet, how it's laid out is the first part is gonna be income. So all different sources of income, whatever income you have, but again, it's gonna be net, because that's the money you actually have to spend. And then we also have here, like if you have part-time job, or if you work off commission, child support, things like that. But if there's any expense that's not reliable, or it fluctuates, you know, that's gonna change your budget, okay? Now we've listed the expenses on here. We have it on this worksheet with pay period 1 and pay period 2. And the reason we do that is because we can't pay all our bills with one paycheck, okay? Nobody. Pretty much everyone I know, so I'm gonna say nobody, okay? Or it turns into, there's multiple sources of income coming into the house. So, for instance, maybe there's 2 wages, okay? So that's what we do at our house. And where you gotta be careful with this, because yes, it's gonna be creating fights, okay? That does make wars. But where I write pay period 1 and pay period 2, that's first paycheck, second paycheck. But if you have multiple sources of income coming into the house, okay, it's maybe like my husband has one column and I have the other column, okay? Because that way he can take care of mortgage and I take care of utilities. So then the columns aren't pay period 1 and pay period 2. The columns are my money and his money. And then, you know, then it comes up with how come he gets all the expenses? And it's because I go to Starbucks. Okay. So, you know, so things like that, or me and the kids go out to eat or go on vacation, you know, I get to spend my money on fun stuff. Okay. And his expenses are not fun. Okay. So, you know, things like that is you want to be creative with your budget, with whoever's at home, if anyone's helping you, or if you do, for instance, if you have adult children and you are collecting rent, then it's just like, okay, you're responsible for the electric bill, or, you know, or I'm going to collect enough from all of you to cover all the utilities. And then I'll be able to show them the electric bill is average this, water, gas. And then between the 3 of you, that ends up being $200 a month. Because then that way they just see it as like, oh, you're so mean and you're charging me rent. It's like, no, here's the sum of the utilities. I'm dividing it by the 3 of you guys. So each of you need to contribute this, and it's going to go to that. Because I always emphasize, you know, we have the mortgage payment or you have the rent payment, but that house has to live. I was like, these utilities feed the house. Just like food feeds you guys, these utilities feed the house. We keep the house alive with utilities. And that's something, those houses have to have utilities. So, you know, I emphasize to them, that's an expense that has to be there. And so maybe that's the goal for them, is like, I'm going to start collecting to pay those things. It's not, you're not contributing to my Starbucks money. You're contributing to this AC, you know, that's kept at 60 and you guys are freezing and it's 110 outside. You know, whatever things, you know, like that, is you just have to give them examples of, I'm not just asking for money for this reason, because we're covering these things. Okay. So that's just a quick, but you'll want to hit on this sheet to the first column is the income and the expenses. The expenses on the first column are a lot of the expenses we all are going to have and going to be our biggest expenses, where people, I don't want to say fail on budgeting, but where they do do spend the most money, and don't write it down, is under where it says food. Okay, I want you guys to pay attention to, it says groceries and beverage. That's when you go to the grocery store and you get your cart. Okay, you got an actual grocery, and this is per month. So how many times do we go to the grocery store and fill that cart? Which is separate from cleaning supplies and paper product, Tide, Downy, toilet paper, paper towels, which is separate from our food away from home. And a lot of us will have food away from home every day. Okay, remember this is a month. Okay, so even if we ran to Starbucks or to Circle K or Red Bull or diet soda, okay, it's that's your food away from home, which is separate from tobacco and alcohol. And I just put it as tobacco and alcohol, not like, oh, we're going and splurging and buying, spending $100 a week on wine. It's we went to the concert, we went to the casino, that's our social life. Okay, so just remember about that section right there is lifestyle. And even though we pack our lunch for work every day, we still go out to eat. Me and my coworker. And I already went to Starbucks in the morning. So, things like that. Okay, so that's gonna be your biggest, that's the section where it's like, oh yeah, I guess I am spending a lot there.
So Patty, just to clarify, so like food away from home, that's anytime you're eating out, like Uber Eats or something like that.
Anything that didn't come from that grocery store.
Okay, and then the tobacco, alcohol, that's my girls' night out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, and that's gonna be an expensive one, because it's like, okay, yeah, a bottle of wine cost me $25 or whatever. But it's like my girls' night out, even though it was happy hour, buy one, get one free, after the tip still cost me $100. Okay, because we know it's no longer a $20 event, it's $100 minimum event.
Mhm.
So, and that's one day. Okay, this is a month. So, how many $100 events did we have? Okay, so I just had one yesterday at In-N-Out. Okay, it's stuff like that. There was no alcohol involved. So yeah, that's gonna be your biggest spender. And then on where it says our personal expense, that's where my husband refers to as your high maintenance. That's where we're gonna spend a lot. Okay, so under personal expense, I wrote beauty, the barber shop, nails, mani, pedis, makeup, perfumes, hair dye, all that. Again, high maintenance. It's like, so that goes under my column on a budget. Okay, so, and then you got your cell phones. So everyone is different. Prescriptions is a big one for a lot of people, but it's different for everybody, because you got your medical, dental. Okay, all my kids wear braces. And then prescriptions, glasses and contacts, my entire house is blind. Okay, so glasses and contacts are a huge expense for us in our house. Okay. I write on here holidays. Okay, this will be my last example because it's 10 o'clock. The holidays, and I'm gonna say this in quotations, we celebrate something every month. Okay, so January is New Year's, February's is Valentine's, March is St. Patty's Day, and I have no business going down, up to 4th Avenue on St. Patty's Day because I'm a Patty. April, you got Easter. May, you got Mother's Day. June, you got Father's Day. July, you have 4th of July. August is back to school. September is Labor Day weekend and birthday month for some of us. And then October, Halloween. Okay, your costumes are now getting to the $100s. The candies are the $100. Again, the $100 minimum. So your Halloween is expensive. November, you got Thanksgiving. December, you have Christmas. Okay, in January, back to New Year's. So we just celebrated and ran into the store for something for those celebrations every month. Okay, those are the ones we're not writing down. Okay, those are the ones like, oh yeah, that is where all my money goes. Okay, the water bottles, well, we all have one at this table. Okay, these things are not cheap. So yeah, those are the kind of expenses. So this is a lot of information. I know it went fast, but we did want to keep it to an hour. And then if you're looking for business entrepreneurship, there is a class after the new year. So we brought this budget just in time to let's save for the holidays, or let's not spend as much on the holidays, or Is it our New Year's resolution? You know, that's gonna be up to each individual. But I know they're looking at considering doing one-on-one, so if that's something you guys are interested in, let us know and we can schedule something like that.